In today's video, we're going to be discussing all the latest offseason trade talk. Today, we're looking at the Montreal Canadiens. Could they possibly hook up with another significant deal with the New Jersey Devils? There's some speculation they may be looking at one of their top young players who might be looking for a change of scenery this offseason. Plus, we have the latest on the Ottawa Senators on their decor. Lots of speculation between Shabbat, Chikrin, etc. that one of them are going to be moved. We'll discuss the latest intel from TSN's Darren Dreger. We had a couple of players hit the 50-goal plateau in the NHL this evening, so some key milestones there. Plus, Nathan MacKinnon continues to set records in Colorado. We have some signings, injury updates, and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Let's kick off the video here. We're talking about some pretty big milestones and some records set here by some pretty prominent NHL players. Of course, we see this year's NHL top goal scorers has a few different names listed. You know, you got guys like Zach Hyman, Sam Reinhart right near the top of the league chasing down Austin Matthews, even though there is a pretty big gap in between. But they're not normally guys you see that high up on the list. Both have had great careers, pretty good goal scorers for the most part. You're looking at, 25 to 30. We've seen Reinhart kind of take some steps during the last year or two in Florida. But, to see both of them tonight hit 50 goals was absolutely impressive. They're not, like I said, guys that you really would have pegged to hit that feat. It's a rare, accomplishment. When you think about how many players have played in the NHL and how few players in history have hit that plateau, it's a pretty significant thing. We saw Hyman hit goal 49 last night against his former team, the Maple Leafs. Tonight, the Oilers battled the Senators. Unfortunately for the Oilers, they dropped both games in Ontario, losing to the Leafs, and then 6-3 last night, and then losing 5-3 tonight to the Sens. But Hyman did get goal number 50. The same way he's gotten most of them off a tap-in, off a beautiful McDavid pass on the power play. McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman have worked incredibly well together, along with some other guys that he's played with there, Nugent Hopkins and a few others that he gets a little ice time with. But, say what you want about Hyman and the fact that he's benefiting from playing with great players, but he did the same thing in Toronto. He played a lot in the top six, obviously spent a lot of time with guys like Tavares and Matthews and Nylander, Marner, etc. And, was a recipient of being the guy that gets a lot of the greasy goals around the net, not afraid to go to the tough spots, and he's had a heck of a season. Like I said, arguably the top free agent signing in Oilers history, you could say. I mean, obviously, technically, Wayne Gretzky, I guess, was a signing, but at the end of the day, Hyman in free agency in modern day here, what a steal, Yes, he's benefiting from playing for the great players, but not everybody has the skills to be able to do what he's done in those spots. So good on him. Reinhart got goal 49 and 50 tonight in Florida. Goal 50 was an empty netter. As much as he may not care what the circumstances were around hitting that magical plateau, probably would have preferred to hit 50 on beating a goalie instead of an empty net. But at the end of the day, they all count, and certainly a different number of empty netters in there. So like I said, Hyman and Reinhart join Austin Matthews as being the number 2 and 3 players in the league this year to hit 50. There's bound to be a few more based on the totals and the few guys that are on the list coming up behind them here. But great milestones there for them. Nathan MacKinnon, what a day he had battling his good buddy Sidney Crosby. We had the Avs and the Penguins today. The Penguins get out to a 4-0 lead, and then in the third period we saw the Avalanche storm back and tie the game at 4-4, send it to overtime, and then the Avs win on a goal by McKinnon's line mate, Jonathan Drouin, who's having a resurgence in Colorado after joining his former junior line mate after not a great run of 5-6 years, whatever it was, with Montreal. I think, like I said, he succumbed to the pressure, didn't have a great run there, but he's found it again, and he's definitely going to be getting a good raise on his contract after taking a league minimum deal here. But MacKinnon himself is now has the second longest streak ever for points at home to start a season, and he's now at 34. So he's the second place all by himself. Wayne Gretzky had a 40-game home point streak, so he still has enough games left. We'll see if he can catch them. I mean, obviously that's quite a feat, and he's only the second player in history to have 2 different streaks of 18 or more games with point streaks in the same year. I mean, we've had lots of other players hit 15, 18, 20 goal or point game streaks, but to have 2 separate ones of that long in 1 year, he's the only guy to do it. And he's also now set a team record as well. The big record that he broke here today is obviously that home streak's impressive, but it's the second longest in history. He now has the record for most points in a single season in Avalanche history with 121, passing his boss there in Colorado, former superstar player Joe Sakic. So he had a great day. Crosby, MacKinnon, and I didn't get to see the whole game. I only seen part of the third period. I checked the scores on my phone and seen that it was that the Avalanche looked like they're going to storm back and tie it. It was getting close, and it's like, Jesus might have a wild finish or a great overtime. So I flipped over and caught that, and it was very entertaining finish. Fun to see those two Nova Scotia boys go head to head. They certainly bring out the best in each other. We can say that for sure. Some other roster moves and updates around the NHL today. We saw the Calgary Flames announce that they've signed prospect Yanni Yermo. He gets a 2-year ELC because he's his age. He's not, between the ages of 18 and 20. You get the 3-year, $850,000 per year. So obviously he's a little older than age 20, so he gets the 2-year. The Boston Bruins today also announced today that forward Riley Duran gets a 2-year ELC. Same case for Duran, a little bit older, so he gets a 2-year ELC. He was a 2020 6th rounder, so he's been playing in Providence College for a few years, getting his development in place here. So Duran should be able to join the American Hockey League, I believe, for the remainder of the year on an ATO, and this ELC, I believe, like Yermo, will kick in for next season. We saw as well Vegas Golden Knights recalled goaltender Yuri Patera. Unfortunately, Aiden Hill is injured. They're about to go on a 4-game road trip as well, and Hill is not going to travel with the team. So Logan Thompson expected to get the starts, or at least most of them, with Patera joining him to back up. We also seen as well that the Lightning, they started their game a little while ago. No Point, no Hedman in warm-ups. So they were not playing tonight. So the whole, I know everybody likes to bug Elliot Friedman, no point in warm-ups after his tweet there a couple of years back in the playoffs. But Braden Point and Victor Hedman both out tonight for Tampa. They're both listed as day-to-day. Hopefully that doesn't drag on too long. Both extremely important players there in the team as they continue to battle to hold down their playoff spot, although they are relatively secure and look like they should be a lock, I stress should be, for wildcard 1 spot. Quick update as well on one of the top prospects outside the NHL, and that's top prospect for the Sharks, Will Smith, who was a high pick in the 2023 NHL draft. He was named the 2024 Hockey East Tournament MVP, had 4 goals and 1 assist in the championship game, so had a heck of an effort, had a heck of a college season, really for his age. So he led the Boston College Eagles to that tournament victory, and it's really had a really strong campaign, as we mentioned before, and amongst the finalists for the Hobey Baker this year. All kinds of great young talent in there in their first college season. So nice to see guys like Smith really stepping up. He's looking like he's going to be a real solid player for the Sharks when he comes out and signs. I'm not sure if he'll play next year or how quickly he'll come out of the college system and sign his pro contract. Quick update as well on the Columbus Blue Jackets general manager search. Now, beat writer for the Jackets, Aaron Portzline, who works for The Athletic, had some comments on that situation. Apparently, from what he's been told, president of the team, John Davidson, has already informed internal candidates, including Rick Nash, that they will not be considered and interviewed for the vacant general manager spot. Obviously, we know Rick Nash has been working with the team for the last couple of years. We know he's going to be working in a manager spot with Team Canada coming up here as well for some of the international tournaments. World Championships, I believe, is the main one he's looking after for right now. So he's certainly a bright up-and-coming executive. I think he's got a bright future in the league, and hopefully for him, he probably would like that to be in Columbus as well. But I guess they don't feel that anybody internally is really the best candidate or ready to take on that big of a jump just yet. So we'll see. I mean, I know there's some speculation that their list is, the people they want to talk to in an interview is really lengthy. I know Rick Nash recently conducted an interview when he was asked about some different things regarding, potentially who could be in that role. He referenced a lot of Mark Hunter. Now, Mark Hunter was a name that came up very early on from NHL insiders, including Elliotte Friedman, who mentioned the potential. We know Mark Hunter's been trying to become an NHL GM for some time. He last worked in the league for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, he and Kyle Dubas were both assistant GMs as well to Lou Lamoriello for a couple of year stretch there. And once Lou was, I guess, kind of being forced out, if you will, I would say moving out, but moving into the president's role, they picked Dubas to go to the GM role. Hunter, of course, was overlooked for that, and then he ended up going back not long after to the London Knights, of course, where the Hunter brothers have been running the Knights organization for some time. That's where Rick Nash, of course, first would have got to know the Hunters because he played there. So obviously, they had a strong connection between Mark and Dale Hunter, between the GM and the coach, with Nash during his time there. So obviously very familiar, lots of connections. So not to say that Rick Nash is going to have all the say here. He's certainly not. John Davidson and possibly ownership will have final say in who the GM is, but I guess they could get a nice recommendation from Nash as potential. So we'll see. But the word around the league is that they want to talk to a lot of people. There's a lot of guys they want to at least touch base with. We'll see. They'll slowly whittle down that list, but Mark Hunter is expected to be on it. We do know that. Now, a couple of rumors around the NHL here today. I want to look at the Sens, and then there's a Habs Devils trade that I stumbled upon, some speculation that might be brewing for the offseason as well. In terms of Ottawa, of course, we've seen lots of speculation about what Steve Staios and Michael Andlauer there might do to make things different for next year. Obviously, the Sens did not have the year they were hoping for. They were one of the teams that were pegged to take a big step this year. But to be honest, there was a lot of things that went wrong right from the get-go before the season even started. And some of these things are well beyond the control of the players. I'm not giving them a complete pass here because obviously it's on them to get the job done on the ice. But you got to remember, the team was being sold. The ownership, they would have liked to have taken over this team in the summer, and it drug on until right before training camp. Most of us considered the fact that they kind of had a lame duck coach and GM in Dorion and Smith. We knew once ownership was firmly in place, they're likely going to be gone, matter of time. I mean, I guess depending on who you ask, there was speculation it could be at, not necessarily a huge rush, but they both wouldn't survive very long. They're going to want their own people to be running those jobs. So the fact that Pierre Dorion had to operate this past offseason as basically a lame duck GM, had every decision run through the board of directors that were running the team that was consulting with the new owner. There was an agreement that Michael Andlauer was allowed to be consulted on any big moves. Obviously, that was good in a way, but the fact that they really couldn't do exactly what they wanted to do and really get their hands into it here was a big problem. And I'm sure the ownership change was a huge distraction. The players knew changes were going to come when that happened, and the fact that it happened so late was really not great. And then you throw in the fact that Shane Pinto, right before training camp, who's in a contract, well, I don't want to call it dispute, but stalemate, if you will, gets suspended for 41 games because of that gambling thing, which we don't really know a lot about. And I still kind of wonder I still think it was too harsh, but at the end of the day, they never seen that coming, right? So they lose one of their top centers. The ownership thing, it just, they knew in the offseason DeBrincat didn't want to be there. Did they get a good deal in return? Not really, because you lose all your leverage. They brought in Tarasenko as a placeholder. He did a good job while he was there. Now he's gone. It's just a lot of things just went wrong. Like I said, not going to give them all a pass. It's up to them to get the job done. But it felt like between that and the schedule, they had the wonkiest schedule this year. It just seemed like they had a lot of things stacked against them. And then you throw in some injuries. They lose Josh Norris. So they had a stretch where they played extremely well for about 20 games where they actually had Stützle, Pinto, and Norris. And now, Norris is gone again. So, injuries, there's just so many things. But the defense is by far, along with goaltending, the defensive side of the game, big issue. So a lot of talk about Shabbat, Chychrun. They probably both won't be there next year. Jacob Chychrun's name surfaced in trade rumors, mainly because he's not signed long-term. And he did have a rougher second half of the season. He had a really good game today. Played extremely well, scored a couple of big power play goals. I'm not sure what management's complete view is here, but do they need a different mix in the back end? They definitely do. But there's been a bit of a difference of opinion amongst media and fans about should they keep Chychrun. Maybe it's a guy like Chabot that should go and they get a different kind of defenseman and change things up that way. But according to Darren Dreger at TSN, he was on TSN 1200 pregame show today before the Sens Oilers games, and he said that he says from his knowledge is that Sens management loves Chabot. They see him a huge part of the future, and he really doesn't see any scenario where Chabot is traded this offseason. Didn't talk too much about Chychrun, just basically saying that if one of the two was moved, he would be putting his money on Chychrun. Now, of course, like I said, Chychrun has a pretty good contract. He's still pretty fair value. He's going to be looking for a big raise on his next one. We know that. And that can be starting to be negotiated July 1. So I really think the Sens are probably going to, want to talk contract with him first to see what kind of deal he'd be willing to sign to stay before they really consider a move. I honestly think Erik Brannstrom is a real possible trade possibility as well. So I wouldn't rule out others. They just need a shakeup. I don't know if any of their core forwards, though, really need to go. I honestly think they need to focus on the back end, including goaltending, and maybe just the depth pieces, like the bottom six a little bit. I don't know if you can't make 10 changes to your team in 1 year and expect to go from being, where they are to automatically in a top 3 spot in the division and a strong contender. It's not going to happen overnight. I think they're going to need to tinker at this over the course of probably a couple of years. So we'll see. But I know lots to talk about Chabot in his future. Dreger has completely downplayed that and still is willing to bet his money that if a left shot defenseman is moved out of Ottawa, more likely to be Chychrun. I personally think Brannstrom's the most likely. I'd put Chychrun as the second likely, but we'll see what they do. Do they need a different mix back there? They definitely do. There's no doubt about it, but we'll see. Now, I also come across an article today suggesting that the Habs and Devils may be looking to rekindle their talks and have another fairly significant, if not blockbuster trade. Of course, I wouldn't call the Jake Allen trade a blockbuster, but certainly proved to be an important pickup here for New Jersey at the NHL trade deadline. So these two teams have had a lot of talks lately, we know that, and the interest in Allen dates back to probably halfway through the year. Those talks went on and off. According to Jake, during interviews, he says that he's been approached and was asked about the Devils because they were on his no trade clause for teams that he was blocking, and he was approached 2 or 3 different occasions at different points in the year before he finally said, okay, let's go. I think he wanted to wait, see how the season played out, and kind of analyze his future a little bit more before he really made a decision. As the deadline got closer, they came back, and he's like, okay, let's go. So it sounds like he is likely going to stay. I don't think they're going to be flipping him based on what I've seen and heard myself. And I think they're going to look to add around him. So, of course, they've had lots of talks with Montreal lately. And another one could be Bruin, according to the information in this article here. So it suggests that youngster Alexander Holtz might be a target of Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon. That we know Montreal likes to pull off these deals where they find, former top first-round talent that might be needing a change of scenery. Not that Holtz has had a bad year. He hasn't. I think he's up to 15 goals now. But I'm not sure that he's going to have a legit long-term top 6 spot. I mean, it just seems like they're reluctant to give that to him. His ice time isn't real high. Good player, and maybe they decide not to do this. Of course, it's always possible, but it's believed that this article suggests that Arbor Jacki might be a mix that they want to bring in. Now, I don't know how keen the Habs are to move this guy, because obviously he's a unique type of player. But Jacki's name has come up. I've seen his name in rumors that link to a few other teams. Now, this could be, you got to remember, and for Montreal fans saying, oh, no, we're never trading him, doesn't mean they're going to. And the reason why some players come up in the rumor mill, take it as, for those guys, they should be taking it as a compliment. How this usually happens is that other teams really like them. They know they're not signed to a long-term deal. They wonder if that team that has them might be willing to talk. They'll make some inquiries, and then usually it gets leaked through somebody that these teams had talks. Doesn't mean they went anywhere. Doesn't mean they were super serious or they were really close, but that's how the rumor mill usually starts. So, that's always going to be the case. But doesn't mean they're going to do it. But the fact that they're having conversations, should we be surprised that teams, especially looking to add some toughness, would want to add Xhekaj? Not at all. He's a good player. But Montreal does have a logjam on defense, and all of those young defensemen are not going to be able to stay with the Habs. They've got more guys coming, like Reinbacher and Hudson, and they need to make spots for them to really give them a legit chance to be NHLers. When you have guys like Kovacevic and you got Harris and Struble and Xhekaj, like, they're not all going to be able to stay there long term. It's just the nature of it. It's a numbers game, unfortunately, right? So they have to decide who they think fits best long term and who doesn't. So, Josh Anderson's name came up in this deal, as well as being, obviously somebody who's going to be involved. Now, the Devils, would they want Anderson? Of course, they traded Tyler Toffoli. I'm not sure Josh Anderson's an upgrade there. Obviously, Toffoli was a good fit, but certainly, concerned over the next contract. In fact, they were out of the playoff mix. But Anderson and Xhekaj and a draft pick is what the article suggested. Could be a package going to the Devils for Holtz. Now, I can see that being a Montreal counterpoint. I'm not sure that the Devils would want Anderson, but I can understand why they would want to add a player of Anderson's type. He's big, he's strong, he's very much a north-south player. A little bit of, I always kind of call him a one-trick pony. Like, he's big and strong, he can hit. You don't always see it from him, though. Sometimes Anderson's the kind of player I find that kind of leaves you wanting more. But can he score? He's having a rough season now, so his value would be really low. And if the Habs can get out of that contract, that would be great for them. I don't know if that's going to end up being in New Jersey, though. I find the Anderson inclusion here questionable. I think that the Devils would want a different return. I can see them targeting Xhekaj. I'm not sure if the Habs want to do that. Maybe they counter with one of their other defensemen. Maybe they offer Harris. But the Devils' blue line needs work as well. But they also need experience. They lost a lot of experience. With Graves, they lost Graves this year. Hamilton's been out. They didn't bring back Severson. There's a lot of experience off that blue line gone. And they're relying way too much on their young guys. So to bring in another young guy, I don't know. I mean, Hamilton will be back next year because he'll be healthy again. But debatable. I mean, maybe they'd be more likely to target a veteran defenseman. But Xhekaj, like I said, is a unique type of D. And maybe they would like that kind of deal, and they would target experience on defense a different way. I don't know. That's what the article suggested. I'm not completely sold that that's a great deal for both sides. I can see the Devils including Holtz in a trade. I really can. But to me, it's going to have to be for a big upgrade in another area. And as much as these players are decent players, I just don't know if that's a big enough upgrade to really give up on your former first-round pick. So personally, I think in this kind of case, I think the Devils say no to this trade. But it's rumored to be in discussion. It could obviously change a lot if indeed it ever comes to be something that's going to end up happening. But let me know what your thoughts would be from both sides on that deal and what you think the Sens are going to do on their blue line, since we still have lots of talk and speculation around that as well. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. Make sure you leave your comments down below so we know what your thoughts are on today's news, and I'll catch you next time.